episode of the Filmosophers Movie Talk Show. I'm Chris Bush.
And I'm Dean Slider.
And welcome you to the show where we talk about film and filmosophy with the people who make the movies and who love the movies. And our guest today, we're thrilled to have with us 40-year legend in film, actor, director, filmmaker, writer, producer, philanthropist, the great Bill Duke. Bill, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, gentlemen. And excuse my mask, but I'm in an environment, so thank you for having me.
So we hope that these shows we're doing will outlive the pandemic, but everyone will understand that the reason you're wearing the mask.
Yes. I'm not the Lone Ranger.
That's right. Who is that masked man? Okay, we can tell it's you from those soulful eyes.
Right. Yeah. Your best feature is still available. So.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, Bill, we of course will want to visit with you about some of your favorite films, some of which we've been alerted to ahead of time and had a chance to revisit ourselves. But we'd love to talk just a little bit about your storied career and you know, it's certainly you've spoken a lot and many times in interviews about your work and that some of the highlights of your work, working with Richard Pryor and George Carlin in Car Wash, in American Gigolo with Richard Gere, certainly Predator and Commando with Arnold.
Yes, Arnold.
No? And I know you'll, for all your great accomplishments, no doubt, you know, on that fateful day when you leave us, that will be the lead on your obituary.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
Predator star, Bill Duke.
Yeah, that's
well,
right.
You know, I don't think, well, you know, when Alec Guinness passed away, I don't think it was Lawrence of Arabia and Bridge on the River Kwai. I think it was Obi-Wan Kenobi. So
Wherever it is, it's okay.
yeah. So share with us just a little bit about the journey, you know, some of your and where you are now and current and future projects. We just kind of love to hear you riff a little bit for us on some of the highlights of your work and your career.
Well, I've been very fortunate. You know, has not been an easy journey. I've written a book called Bill Duke, 40 years on screen and behind the camera, and really talks about my childhood. I came up during segregation, and so it was not an easy time. And through Hollywood and all of the things everybody faces in Hollywood. But being a Black director, there were other challenges also. But I had some good people that looked out for me. And so, and mentors and people that helped me get through my journey. So I'm grateful and thankful for that. But I started out as a writer because I was not, in my childhood, considered attractive. I was tall, dark, and I was, you know, so I wasn't good at communicating. And I had something called dyslexia. Dyslexia is interesting because although I couldn't communicate very well in terms of memory, I memorized most of Roget's thesaurus to make it appear as though I could intellectually, you know. So I came up during those kinds of times, and then, you know, I was at Dutchess Community College in Constance Q, and my speech and drama teacher put me in a play called Emperor Jones, and I got the bug. But when I told my parents I wanted to act, they said no, it's impractical because the only person that we knew then was Sidney Poitier and Harry Belafonte. And so we, you know, they said, you're always writing in a journal, your feelings and thoughts. Become an English teacher because English teachers make money. So I went to BU. Unfortunately, I was an English major and I had fallen asleep for the third time in my Chaucer class. I don't know if you ever read Chaucer, but
Bill, I was an English teacher for 33 years, and
so
I taught Chaucer.
Wanata prilla with its chora sota.
Well, there you go. There you go. But let me just interject, if I may, that it wasn't your fault. It was the teacher's fault, because it took me a while, but I figured out how to teach Chaucer, which is you start with the dirty stories.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, no, there's like completely obscene stories, big practical jokes where people are farting in each other's faces and so forth. You start with those, and then the kids are in your pocket.
Good Bill has his mask on.
I wish you were my teacher, because we never got to that part.
Right, and then the other thing you show them is that, and this is really the truth. I just have to say this: Chaucer is street. Chaucer was Chaucer was the rapper of his day. When all the high class people were speaking French, he picked up on the street language, which now has become our language, which is English.
I wish you were the teacher, man, because they were. How can I say? That was not what they were teaching.
No, well, I know.
Not to pull you off of your narrative here, Bill, but I heard you tell in an interview a lovely story about your teacher, Mrs. Walker. Would you share that with us as part of your spoken journey here?
Yes, I'll tell you about Mrs. Walker and Dr. Hall. It's in my book also. As I said, I came up and I had dyslexia. I couldn't communicate well, so I kept writing my journal and put my feelings and poems and ideas in my journal. And in high school, English, Miss Walker, my teacher, said, stop doing that in my class. And so for a while I stopped, and then I did it again. At the end of the semester, she said, Duke, stay here. And she took my journal out of my hand. She says, leave the class. To give my journal back, she said, I said, leave the class. And so I left the class, and I came up during segregation. So I was, to a certain extent, racist. I didn't like white people, and I thought she was a mean white woman. This is typical, but I had to finish the class, so I came back next semester. And the last day of the class, she said, Duke, stay here. I said, Miss Walker, what do you want? She said, Duke, stay here. She goes into her desk. She pulls out two things, my journal, and she gave it back to me. And then this book. And in the book was the National Poetry Contest. And she had submitted the poems from my journal and had submitted them in the contest. And I won recognition. That was very confusing because I never expected her to do that. And I was going to say thank you. She said, don't thank me, I believe in you. The second thing that happened is when I was in Dutchess Community College, Dr. Hall, he was in the Navy, he was the president of the college. And he was very, very strict, and nobody liked him, but he was a great, president. And I gotten a scholarship to be Martin Luther King Scholarship at Boston University. So I went to BU, but I had no money to pay for my room and board, or my books, or anything. So I decided I'm going to come back to Poughkeepsie, New York, where I was born, where Dutchess is. I'm going to work for a year and then go back and, have enough money to pay for those things. So I went to Dutchess Community College to visit a friend of mine. I was leaving the college, and Dr. Hall came on and says, hey, Duke, come here. I said, Dr. Hall, I got to leave. He says, I said, come here, please. He brings me into his office, and he says, I hear through the grapevine that you're going to leave Boston University and come back to Poughkeepsie. I said, yes, sir, because I have no money to, and he said, stop. He goes into his vest pocket. He pulls out an envelope. I said, what is this? He said, open it. In the envelope, there was a check that paid for all my room, board, and food for the next 3 semesters I was at BU.
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
I said, Dr. Hall, he said, just do your best.
Mm-hmm.
And
sometimes it only takes a few angels in your life, huh?
Man, but they are angels, brother. They are angels. And I would not be here today if it wasn't for those two people.
I feel like you've largely defied in your career pigeonholing or labeling as a black actor, a black this or a black that. I mean, you certainly have been a strong representative of black issues in your work, but you've also directed mainstream, Hollywood TV shows. And would love to hear just a little bit too about your reflections of your work relative to race and issues concerning and, relevant to an African-American man in this society and in your industry?
I'll give you a couple of examples. I was the first Black director on Dallas. And so I was just so happy, so proud. And so I got dressed up in my car for my first day of pre-production, had my briefcase. I had an old car, but I washed it up and polished it. Drove up to the front gate of the studio, and I rolled my window down, and the security guard looks into the window and he says, "Who are you delivering for?" I said, "What did you say?" He said, "Who are you delivering for?" I looked at him in his eyes, but I was so upset. But I had seen Dr. Martin Luther King's speech the night before, and I wanted to say to him, "I'm about to deliver a can of whip-ass to you." But I didn't say it because I would have been known as the angry Black man in Hollywood. And what I said instead was, "I'm delivering my talent as the first Black director on Dallas. Could you please open the gate?" The most satisfying thing about that was the look on his face. And that was something that I'll never, ever forget. I got to my first day of shooting, Larry Hagman comes up to me and says, "Welcome to Dallas, my friend." I said, "Mr. Hagman, I really admire the show and your work." He said, "Thank you." He says, "But you and I are going to get along really good as long as you get me out by 2:00 every day." I got him out by 1:30.
That's great. That's great.
So that's an example of just one example of some things that happened. But
Now your first film acting experience, I believe, was Car Wash.
yes,
Is that right? Is that right?
Yes.
I just the other night I rewatched Car Wash, and that's an amazing film.
Yes, the great Michael Schultz, great director, still director.
And it's a film that could never be made today.
You're right. Unfortunately.
The whole flow of it, the fact that it's just this kind of flow of a day in the life of all these people, and in a way, not a whole lot happens until actually your big scene at the end.
Yes.
It's this. I'm going. Hey, the whoever wrote this was not being bound by that screenwriting book that everyone reads. Where's the plot points? Where's your 3-act structure? It was just this incredible flow driven by all that great mid-70s music and those just alive performances.
Yes, George Carlin, Richard Pryor, Danny DeVito, Pointer Sisters. It was a joy.
Yeah, and then in the middle of it, with almost everyone doing these comic performances, you're thrown in the middle doing the one just dead serious role as angry Dwayne / Abdullah.
That's right.
Right. And you've got to make that work. You've got to be doing this thing so contrasting, yet making it work with this whole kind of comic rhythm going on.
Yes.
I mean, how did that play out on the shoot?
Well, the thing is that we were a family on that shoot. All the actors got along really well, but for my role and the circumstances, I kept myself isolated. So for lunch, I would go by myself and eat. Or, during certain breaks, I would just be alone. Because that was the reality that the character was facing. But I made a lot of good friends there, but at the same time, they understood what I was doing. So that was just me using my particular acting techniques. But the movie is something I'll never forget because Michael Schultz gave me my first break really in a major film. And I owe homage to him today. So.
And I you know, I said before, kind of jokingly, that even with the mask on, your best feature is showing your eyes. But I was so struck rewatching that film by these soulful eyes, and that you walked on without before you said a word, the depth of pain showing through there.
Yes.
And then in, I believe it was your next role, American Gigolo.
American Gigolo, yes.
You know, where you're Leon, and you're, and again, I could not take my eyes off of your eyes, but then there was this depth of evil coming through them. And what is it like to be behind those eyes?
Well, you know, it's like acting, and I hate to use the word acting because it seems like you're pretending. But actors who do their job, they're not acting. They become. And you surrender to the character that the writer and the director have asked you to portray. And when I teach acting, I tell my students, okay, you memorize the script, you have all your words, and now what you have to do is to fall into darkness backward. Once you fall into darkness backward, something else, it's hard to explain. You're riding some kind of energy wave that is the character. You gotta trust that. That's what I try to do.
It's so interesting because, you know, I happen to know that all three people in the show today, we all practice meditation.
Yes.
And you could certainly describe meditation as falling into darkness backwards.
That's right.
Same kind of surrender.
Right. Totally right. You know, it's how can I say, you know, I just feel very fortunate to still be here. It hasn't been an easy journey, but with the grace of God and meditation, before meditation, I fell into, because the film business is a business of rejection. And people tell you to get over it. And what's the big deal? But if you go up for 5 roles in 2 weeks, everybody says, no, you take it personally. So I fell into drugs and alcohol to kill the pain of that. But meditation, due to Aida Tangamana, who was a TM teacher at the time, a friend of mine, she literally saved my life. Literally saved my life. Through meditation. I didn't go to AA or nothing. I just did TM. And it saved my life.
Well, while we're on that subject, we'll come back to films in a minute, but interested to hear a little bit about your meditation journey too. I think you were on that teach training course in Ethiopia in the late 80s. Is that right? Late 70s. That Maharishi Mahesh Yogi set up for a lot of Black African nationals, African Americans to attend. And you had time with him there, yeah?
Yes, it was. How can I say? A moment you don't forget. You know, his humility, his spiritual power. It was amazing. You know, and he meditated with us, led the meditations, and then he gave us our techniques individually, and it was a powerful experience. Many of the people that were on that course, I'm still friends with.
Yeah.
It really made a big difference.
Did he talk with you about issues of racism on that course? Did those topics come up at all with him, or was it more on just knowledge and consciousness?
Well, as I remember, and don't quote me, but the things I remember is him talking, how can I say, it was almost from a quantum physics point of view. He talked about energy and how that's all we really are. And that every time you meditate, a mantra impacts the energy that you are. No matter what color you are, no matter what gender you are, no matter any of that, we are basically all the same energy, vibrating at different levels, etc. And it was like he helped you understand, yes, you're an individual, but how similar you are to everybody else. And that was very helpful, that thinking at that time, because, as you know, during the 70s in this country, there were race riots, there were all kinds of things going on. The wars, but Maharishi always had this centered, you know, it's like, you know, and he had great laughter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he had great sense of humor. And so it was infectious in the sense that he passed that on to us.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Back to your film work, how did you make the transition from in front of the screen to I'm in front of the camera to behind the camera, Bill?
Well, I had a very successful acting career, and I was on a show called Palmerstown, USA. It was on for a couple of seasons, and then the show was canceled. And I didn't work for almost 2 years, and I had directed stage, but I was so intimidated by the cameras and the lights and the crews. And I said, how's anybody control that? But after I didn't work for a couple of years, I said, you know, I got to find more things to do than just act. And so I applied to the American Film Institute, and I got in. And a great, great, great man named Tony Villani was the head of the AFI at the time. And he guided me and other students through the whole process. He had a book called The 5 C's of Cinematography by Michelli, and he guided us in terms of, you know, editing and framing and camera angles, etc. And I learned so much. And I made a student film called The Hero. And it was a short film, but it won a couple of awards of recognition. And I took it to studios and networks, but nobody would let me direct anything. They said, we'll give you your second job, but not your first. Mm. So I was depressed, so I went away to a meditation retreat. I drove away, I was 2 hours away. And in the middle of the week, I was there, and my agent called me and said, you know, David Jacobs at Knox Landing wants you to come in and interview you, possibly direct Knox Landing. I said, what? I drove back so fast, I think I broke all records in speed. And that Monday, I went to David Jacobs' office in Knox Landing. And the meeting lasted around 5 minutes. And then I left. I said, my agent said, you know, I just think that was, I guess you asked him to interview me, and he did it for you, but that was it. That following week, the agent calls me and said, David Jacobs wants you to direct an episode of Knox Landing. Mm-hmm. And I was so overwhelmed, I told everybody. So I was in pre-production for a week, and Joe, I forgot the last name, Joe Eisenberg, I think his name, came into my office and said, Bill, you did great pre-production, but we could tell you were going to be good based upon your reel. I said, what reel? He said, the reel you did for your other show. I said, no, I just got an AFI. He said, wait a minute, well, he goes into David Jacobs' office. David Jacobs had mixed my box up with someone else's. That's how I got my first gig as a director. True story.
Bill, somebody up there wanted you to make movies.
Hey, man, right? I'm just saying, God is good.
Yeah, wow. Boy, whatever it takes.
Yep. Hey.
The lords of karma move in mysterious ways, their wonders to perform.
Every day. Every day. Yep. So I feel very fortunate. You know?
So once you had that first job, then the second and the third and the fourth were pretty easy to get?
I wouldn't say they were easy, but once you prove that you can come in on time, on schedule, on budget,
Mm-hmm.
That word is passed on to other producers.
Mm-hmm.
And I always made it a point to come in faster than other directors that were working on the show,
Mm-hmm.
not sacrificing the quality, but I knew that I was being watched.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to be a little better. And so
Mm-hmm.
that word was passed on. So that's how I survived.
And I'm sure everything else being equal, for a producer to look at the numbers and see on time, under budget, let's get Bill Duke back.
That's right. That's right. It's about, as you know, it's all about the dollars and management. I always tell my students that directing is a two-component thing. One is the creative aspect, where you have the same vision as the writer, producer, and the show, etc. But the second component is management of three things: time, people, and money.
Mm.
You can be the greatest creative person in the world. If you can't manage time, people, and money, you don't survive.
Mm.
Right. You know, my wife, who works in documentary film, tells me there's a saying there. Maybe you've heard this one: fast, cheap, good. Pick any two.
She's a very wise woman. Very insightful. It's true.
Yeah,
It's true.
but if you can, but it sounds like you found the sweet spot to get all three of those good enough.
Yes, sir. It's you have to keep your integrity as a creative person, but it's a business.
Right.
And I tell young people now that come to my classes or I do interviews with, you know, they tell me their passion about, this is a film about my grandfather and he was a famous da 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 da.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, okay, but when you go in to pitch your ideas to networks or studios, are you answering the essential question in the first 5 to 10 minutes of your pitch? And they say, what question do they want to know? I say, this is what they want to know. How the hell you gonna make me my money back?
Right.
You can be as creative as you want, but if you can't answer that question,
Right.
and I used to be offended by that. But then my agent said to me one day, "Hey, Bill, if someone asks you for $1 million, when you want to know the answer to the same question?"
Right. Right. Sure.
And there is a reason they don't call it show art.
No.
Show business.
That's what it is, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
show business.
Yeah.
So
Now you've had the opportunity to also direct a few, maybe a few projects of a more personal nature. You talk about a couple of those where you really had a hand in the getting the production done and the writing and the whole thing.
well, you know, my film, documentary-wise, I directed 2 films that deal with colorism and racism in the Black community. You know, light-skinned people are preferred over darker-skinned people, and it's hurting our children so deeply. And so I made 2 documentaries that were on OWN and other networks that did very well. But getting things done with, how can I say, messages are not necessarily easy.
Mm-hmm.
I call it edutainment. You have to, yes, entertain to make the investor their money back. Also, you can put little nuggets that people can think about and feel. And that's my preference, to do things that, yes, it's good business, at the same time, it shows our mutual humanity. And that's what my focus is. My focus is, particularly today, when we're being divided so drastically in terms of race and gender and class and politics and whatever. I think we all have to take a part in trying to, for our children's future, I mean, not just ours, but our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren and their children. What are we leaving them? What are we leaving them? don't we have a responsibility for their future? And sometimes we're so selfish that we don't even think about it. We do things to make money, and greed is, if there's two G's, God and greed, greed always wins. So I just want to leave a legacy that, how can I say that, contributes to something that I'm very concerned about the planet right now. You know, in terms of, I've been doing a lot of research. What we're doing to our planet is being manifested by the fires and floods and all the things that are going on. I'm concerned for not only our generation, but our great-grandchildren. Well, what are we leaving them? Anyway, I don't want to preach. I'm just...
Right. Yeah, but you're right. I mean, I know you and I both are living in California here, and it was only a few weeks ago we had apocalyptic skies. And I mean, the one good thing about that is no one could avoid seeing it. You know, when the sky is orange, something's going on.
Something's going on. And when you're breathing air and you're coughing,
yeah,
something's going on.
Something's going on. Yeah.
So I hope that we wake up.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about your foundation, the Duke Media Foundation, and what your objectives are with that work that work that you do.
Well, thank you for that. It's one of the most important things in my life right now. It's been in existence between 9 and 10 years now, and I'm trying to fill a gap. I don't know if you know this, but in certain high schools in Los Angeles, California, we're graduating children from high school with 2nd and 3rd grade reading skills from high school. How do you survive in a global economy with a 2nd and 3rd grade reading skill? It's called prison.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to fill the gap, and we teach just 2 things. For young people are interested in getting into our industry, we teach media literacy. And what media literacy is the transition of combining film and TV with media. Netflix, Google, Crackle, Hulu, it goes on and on and on. And how do you begin to think in terms of media? Because a lot of people now are not waiting to be discovered, they're discovering themselves. Like Issa Rae or the guys who did It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Those shows have been on for years, and they start off with webisodes and podcasts. And so we try to teach young people. I mean, I worked on a film a couple of years ago with Steven Soderbergh called High Flying Bird. It's on Netflix right now.
By the way, that was one of my favorite films of last year. Underrated, underseen, underpublicized.
Yeah.
But oh my gosh, what a wonderful film.
I thought he did a great job, and he brought us all to New York. It's a feature film. He shot the entire feature film in 2 weeks with 5 iPhone 7 Pluses. The entire movie.
Incredible.
5 iPhones. Okay, so I try to teach children that they can discover themselves. Number 2, we teach financial literacy. Because people are taught how to spend money, but not how to use money. We teach them what is the Federal Reserve, what is the FDIC, what is Wall Street, what is stocks, what are bonds, what is saving, what is debt, what is. So the thing is that what is money? So you can use it to your benefit. As I think you know, there are athletes, for example, who make $200 million and go broke. If you took 5% of $200 million and put it in a box under your bed, you know what I'm saying? But no one teaches. And so we teach financial literacy, not how we only spend money, but how to use money. So those are the two things we focus on.
Beautiful, beautiful contribution.
Thank you.
I wanted to mention too, it came to mind, I had helped to advance some meditation programs through the David Lynch Foundation in South Side of Chicago, and had the opportunity a couple of years ago to meet a very special woman named Diane Latiker.
Oh, I'm making a film about her.
It wasn't just chance that I mentioned this.
Yeah.
Tell us about that project.
She is one of the greatest heroes that is unrecognized. She got a CNN Heroes Award like 2 or 3 years ago, and Ice Cube gave her the award. But she's contributing. She's sacrificing her life, her family, everything she has to help save these kids from killing each other and killing themselves. And I think it should be celebrated. I keep trying to find looking for funding for the film, because I want her legacy to be known. She's one of the greatest people, and so glad you met her, and so glad you've been helping her, because she's a one of a kind. She really is.
Well, we had offered to train her in meditation and to have her, adopt the program for some of her young people in the organization, Kids Off the Block. It didn't really come to pass, but we'll see. Maybe you'll have an opportunity to whisper in her ear. Wanted to switch gears to Bill to talk a little bit about some of your favorite films, because that's one of the things we like to do with our guests as part of our show. And we were alerted to a few of your favorites. Among them, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
One of my favorite films of all time, and it should be remade and played now. It's a Wonderful Life. One of the greatest films ever in terms of human values. I just think that I watch it every year almost, and I just love it. Run, Lola, Run. It's one of the most genius, brilliant. It's brilliant, man, brilliant. And he never got the recognition he really deserved. I'm sorry.
That's Tom Tykwer, the Dutch director who made that.
No, the whole concept of Run, Lola, Run, and the kind of slicing and dicing of time and consciousness and possibilities and cause and effect and intention and outcome. And it all winds up being about love in a crazy way.
The bottom line is love. And the mixing of film with animation and flashbacks, and he's a genius.
And if for those who haven't seen it, we encourage you to see it. If you haven't, Run, Lola, Run, or Lola Rent is the story of a young girl who has 20 minutes to procure enough money, a substantial sum of money, to save her boyfriend from the gang. And Dean, I love your sliderizing of that film, because it's a philosophical movie.
Yeah, it really is. And anyone who's not seen Run, Lola, Run, that's the very next thing you should do after you're done watching this.
That's right. That's right.
And I'm so glad to hear you talk about It's a Wonderful Life, because it's a favorite film of so many people's, but I think somehow there's something about it people they misremember it, because possibly some of it's the title and people think of Frank Capra and Jimmy Stewart as being all sweetness and light, but it goes there.
Man.
It's very, very, it explores the dark places.
That's right. It's a cold-blooded film, and what's great about it, it tells the truth.
Yeah.
It tells the truth about our existence and what we're told is important in life.
Right.
Success and money and business.
Yeah.
But what it comes down to is love.
Yeah. And I think it's, it's kind of a Nixon goes to China thing. When you see Jimmy Stewart, who's just, America's Boy Scout, when he goes dark, when he says, well, why do we have to have all these kids?
Right. Exactly right. It takes him there.
Yeah.
When he realizes that the true value of his life is his wife and his children and his family.
Yeah.
That's what's powerful.
Yeah.
He's going to commit suicide.
Yeah.
And the angel saves him and takes him off the bridge.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Again, the angels hopefully show up always at the right moment.
That's right.
In his case, it took an intervention.
Right.
To open his eyes.
Yes, very true.
It was a beautiful film. A couple of other movies that I know are favorites of yours. Melvin Van Peebles' Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song, and Blue Collar with Richard Pryor, Harvey Keitel, and Yaphet Kotto. Talk a little bit about those and why they are favorites of yours and why you think they endure.
Well, Melvin Van Peebles doesn't get the credit that he deserves. It's probably the first Black film that really showed a Black man's humanity and his crisis of life and all the rest of it. He wrote it, produced it, directed it, starred in it, and it just showed the potential of what you could do as a filmmaker. And nothing should stop you. Blue Collar. I mean, I just thought that film, from a worker's point of view, about unions and what happens to the workers. And it wasn't a Black issue. It was the workers, the Black and white, who were suffering under the thumb of oppression, but they had bills to pay.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love films that, how can I say, show our common humanity and what we all face at some point in life. And I think Richard Pryor's performance in that was probably the best ones he's ever done. It was just, and it was about something, you know. Paul Schrader, the director, is one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he directed me in, as you know, another film. So, but anyway, I just like great directors. I love great stories and well written and well acted. It's I just hope and pray that the craft of storytelling comes back one day.
Are there filmmakers of the current time that that are able to, in your opinion, edutain, inspire, educate, as well as entertain?
I think Spike Lee is one of them. I think that John Singleton was one. I think a lot of the young directors coming up now, you know, they really are beginning to think about the responsibility of the craft that they have and what they want to say, and how it's bigger than their ego. It's more about, they have a very powerful tool, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, I just like some of the guys, you know, who are thinking, but you know, some of the stuff out there today, I mean, this generation is not, the young generation is more inclined to respond to explosions and gunfights and the rest of it, you know. It doesn't have to have a message or anything. I'm not putting that down, but I'm just old school. I mean, I just think that's, you know, there have been films that have had all that in the past, but at the same time gave you something to think about.
So, Bill, when you say that you hope the craft of storytelling will come back, is that what you're talking about? The fact that story has been sort of discarded in favor of just intense sensations and kind of making it a big roller coaster ride?
Well, I mean, I go to the theater, I sit there, I see explosions and gunfights and fights and car chases and everything. And people die. I don't really care about them. I don't know anything about the person.
Right.
I don't know anything about the person. And how do they relate to me? I mean, you know,
Mm-hmm.
It's and I don't mind seeing all those things, but I want to care about the person who is going to die or whatever, who's fighting or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
But
have to be invested in them.
that's my preference. But I'm
Right.
simply saying that I don't think that today that's something that you have to do to get a film made.
Mm-hmm.
You have enough explosions, you have enough gunfights, you have enough whatever,
Mm-hmm.
And running and chases and car chases. And
Right.
I think,
or you have a superhero with the backstory of, you know, the last 17 sequels, then it seems to me that can just be so lazy, because right, we don't have to create a character, we don't have to invest you emotionally. You know it's Superman, you know it's Batman, and now let's start the roller coaster.
yeah. And so
But
I think, go ahead.
it's feeding the audience what they think the audience wants, and it's not making a nutritious meal necessarily, or even a tasty nutritious meal. It's giving them fast food, fast food, appealing to the, you know, the adrenaline rush and the, you know, all that. But I mean, there are certainly exceptions, and they get recognized. You know, even in the last couple of years, I'm thinking of, you know, a couple of, you know, even though like Green Book was very commercial film, it, you know, it had some humanity to it. And Moonlight, a year or two before that, Barry Jenkins.
I like both of those films. Yes.
Yeah, Ava DuVernay, you know, is
Ava does good work. It's great,
beautiful work. So, you know, it is there. You know, maybe they tend to show up once a year at Oscars time. You know?
Right. I agree, 100%.
You got to hunt for them, and like a High Flying Bird, like I said. Dean, if you haven't seen that, I really recommend it. It's such a, I mean, Soderbergh is just, to me, he's just a genius. And I had no idea what the movie was about. I had no expectations, and it just was so satisfying. This film about a sports agent in the basketball business. And Bill was in that as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm about to go to Detroit to be in another film with Steven. Acting-wise. Yeah, and so he's a genius, and he can do all of the commercial stuff for the film, but he also makes you care.
Yeah.
Bill, before we started rolling here, you were telling me about the all the precautions that are involved in shooting during COVID time now. Could you say that for the record?
Oh man, it's like. I was just at Tyler Perry Studios. By the way, if you get a chance to go to Tyler Perry Studios, it's an incredible 300 and some acres. The show I was in was called The Oval, and it's about the White House. He literally built the White House on the studio.
Wow.
Inside and out. It's literally like the White House, the same size and everything.
Wow.
So the thing is that, you know, when I say lockdown, it's called the bubble, and couldn't go off of the property, and no one could come in to visit you. Everybody, the crew, the cast, the staff, was tested a minimum of twice a week. Sometimes every day we were tested. So you were like, you know, you felt safe, you know, but these days, as I said, independent filmmaker friend of mine had a budget, I think it was for 1.7, and because of the COVID and the COVID team coming in, so they test everybody all the time and make sure it was safe. Spent up over 2.5 million because you got to be insured, and if someone catches COVID because of your responsibility, you can be sued. So it's a big deal these days, you know. It's like it's a big deal.
I know you're very you've had much success in your career as a working actor, consistently working actor, and I just find it a little bit just amusing how many times you've played the role of a sergeant, a detective, a police captain. you seem to be the go-to guy for the one who gets to say, all right, I want your badge and I want your shield and your gun. Turn them over now. Does that get old, or is it fun every time?
It's fun. It's fun, you know. Of course, I want to do other things too, and I have done other things, but you know, for some reason they see me that way, and it's some good movies too.
Oh yeah.
And so the thing is that I just like good scripts, you know. It's like good scripts, and working with good people too. Working with Arnold, working with Mel Gibson, working with all the people I've worked with is like, and I feel very fortunate.
It's always fun to meet someone who plays hard characters on screen, and then like you, you find, oh, I guess that's acting because he's a sweetheart.
Thank you. I mean, I think acting is a craft, and I really appreciate great actors who have the ability to bring that, you know.
You know, I want to go back, if we may, just for a moment, to Car Wash, because the one other detail there I wanted to ask you about is in every scene, every moment you're on camera, you're wearing that red cap.
Yes.
And
Kufi.
Say it again.
It's called the Kufi, I think.
Yeah.
Is it Jamaican?
It's Jamaican, but it's also a sign of African, how can I say, heritage.
Right. But the fact, this bright red thing, to me, the way visually that made you stand out from the way that set you apart, and it was almost like you were wearing a scarlet letter, you know.
Yeah, I think it was red, black, and green.
Red, black, and green are the colors.
Yeah, and that's the color of the flag of the new nation, the rebellion, etc. So.
Yeah, but so it was really like you were carrying that flag of your cause, and did, seems to me, going in, especially your first time out of the gate acting on screen, to know that, okay, there's this big ensemble cast, and I'm the one guy with this thing shining off of my head. Yet you really had to bring it.
Hey, when you work with good actors I was working with, and you work with the great Michael Schultz, Michael makes you bring not 100 but 1,000%. Right. And so working with a great director helps, and having a great script, that always makes it.
Yeah.
Work.
Michael Schultz has had an amazing career.
Oh yes, he's still working.
Yeah, I mean, to go everywhere from there to you know, all that TV, and then, you know, crazy projects like Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band,
Right.
which someone decided that making that film was a good idea.
And Michael's a great director, and also great people.
Yeah.
Great people. Yeah. Very fortunate.
And I wanted just to go back to Sweetback for a minute. I rewatched that the other evening, and you know, just in terms of production values, it doesn't hold up that great in my opinion. But I can see how, you know, you were a young man in your 30s when that came out, immersed in the urban experience as a black man living in urban America, and to see a film about a black man made by a black man who deals with all of the oppressive authority, white authority, and prevails, you know, and really shows in I think through the lens of the black experience what must have seemed like, really, this is real. He's really showing it like it is. That must have been very revelatory, and I'm imagining an inspiration for you, you know, in your career as well.
It was very inspirational because, you know, so, well, if Melvin can do it, maybe I can do it too, you know. And also, a lot of people think that people don't know is, you know, Melvin was a Wall Street genius. He worked on Wall Street.
Really?
Yeah. So a lot of funding came for his films from Wall Street. Stock market.
Yep. Show business.
That's right.
And a great documentary made by his son, Mario.
Yes.
About his father and the making of that film called Badass, which I enjoyed a lot.
Mhm.
Very good. And you've had, know that you've had the opportunity to work with a lot of really just wonderful African-American actors, Lawrence Fishburne, Gregory Hines, Danny Glover,
Ivan
Moses
Dixon.
Gunn, Alfred Woodard,
Ivan Dixon, yes.
Ivan Dixon in your work in Car Wash. Any kind of highlights or working with Arnold, or any kind of little anecdotes to share from your experiences working with some of the greats of our time?
Well, I'll give you a story. When we did Predator, we were high in the jungles of Port Arthur. I'll tell you two stories. One, Arnold bought out the ballrooms in the gym and had, the ballrooms in the hotel. And he had in these big tractor trailers, gym equipment shipped in and set up for 2 gyms in all the ballrooms. And every morning, say there's a 7 o'clock call to be on set, he and all the guys, Sonny Land and all the other guys, they'd get up at maybe 4 o'clock in the morning. They'd run for 5 or 6 miles, go to the gym for an hour and a half or so, eat breakfast, and then they go to the set.
Mm.
I did it 3 times. And they called me a wimp and everything else. I did not care. It was just insane.
I saw you huffing and puffing up that mountainside.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
I'm exhausted just hearing that story.
It was crazy, man.
Uh-huh.
And then the first week we were there, the caterer put netting around the food tent because we were in the middle of the jungle. Snakes and scorpions and spiders and bugs of all kinds. And they gave us the food. There was bugs in the food. I said, take this crap back. We're not eating it. Caterer said, guys, it's all the food we have. I got it. By the second week, it was called protein.
I
There was no more food.
Yeah.
Well, the sacrifices we make, huh?
Hey, what can I tell you?
It's extra texture.
Extra texture, that's right.
We're just about an hour. Dean, is there more you'd like to?
Such a wonderful sense of this long career that you've had, and just a particular kind of energy. I don't know how to even put my finger on it, how to express it, but a kind of maybe just a drive that you seem to bring to every project to tell some kind of truth.
I try my best, my friend. Thank you for that. I try my best. Thanks you both for having me. I really appreciate it. Great questions.
Oh, Bill, it's been such a joy to have you with us and share this time with you, and hope you enjoyed yourself as well.
It's a great show, and the best of luck with it. And Jai Gurudeva.
The great Bill Duke. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
Bye-bye. Thank you for joining us on the Filmosophers Movie Talk Show. Please subscribe to stay up to date on our newest episodes.